Australia's e-safety commissioner, Julie Inman-Grant, is not a household name in this country, but some of her speeches and policy positions have raised eyebrows far and wide. According to the World Economic Forum's own website, the commissioner argues that there is a need to look at safety, privacy and security as the three pillars of digital trust. Safety, privacy and security, not free speech. This safety by design plan sounds wonderful on paper. It can be used to combat the evils of child porn and terrorism, but will it go further than that? Let's have a listen to what Julie Inman-Grant said last year at the World Economic Forum on the need to recalibrate a range of human rights, including free speech.
And everything feels binary when it doesn't need to be. So I think we're going to have to think about a recalibration of a whole range of human rights that are playing out online, from freedom of speech to the freedom to, to be free from online violence, or the right of data protection to the right to child dignity.
Joining me now to discuss this and more is commentator and host at Daily Wire, Michael Knowles. Michael, thank you so much for joining me tonight. What is safety by design and why should we fear it? Surely if it's limited to combating terrorism and child porn, it's a good thing.
Well, if my grandmother had wheels, she would be a wagon. Surely if the premise were true, then we would all agree with that, of course. But unfortunately, the premise is not true. And Julie Grant and the World Economic Forum are trying to hide that. They're trying to say that this new method of policing speech online is simply to combat child pornography and personal attacks and threats and the like. That's not the case, and you can see it actually from the World Economic Forum's own website on the matter when they list all of the evils that the safety by design will combat. The first thing they list is health misinformation. Child pornography actually comes later on down the line. Now, if I were the one designing this, I would go after that second scourge first, but you can tell what this is really about. This is about defending the liberal establishment line on what they consider to be the most controversial issues, namely health information, because that has been the excuse to lock down the world for the past 3 years, as well as a whole litany of other woke desires. And this has been something that is so woke, so far left, that when Julie Grant proposed these sorts of policies when she was working at Microsoft and Twitter, they were too woke for Microsoft and Twitter, pre-Elon Twitter. So she had to take them elsewhere. And she took them, I'm sorry to say, to the Australian government, where they were given a home. And then she took them to Davos, to the World Economic Forum. And the World Economic Forum is partnering with her and with the Australian government to export this kind of speech policing around the world.
And speech policing can become very sinister very quickly, as we have seen with big tech. A term like hate speech, very loose term, means different things to different people. And we've seen how it's been interpreted by big tech to silence some very mainstream opinions, even opinions that are factually correct, but perhaps not politically correct. Exactly.
And so here in the United States, we have broad First Amendment protections, and the government is supposed to accept the First Amendment and free speech. And very often it doesn't want to defend that important provision of our Constitution. And so what they do is they try to work through the back door. And you saw this in the Twitter files release that Elon Musk has wonderfully given to the entire world to bring a little more transparency to big tech. And what the Twitter files showed us was that the government was using its power and its agencies in the U.S. to pressure big tech companies to censor political enemies and effectively to silence conservatives. Now, La Rochefoucauld pointed out, hypocrisy is the tribute vice pays to virtue. At least the government in that case was trying to work through the back door and trying to hide it from people. Unfortunately, with safety by design, the government and the liberal activists are going right in through the front door. And they're saying that it's very difficult for government regulators to keep up with all of the changing demands of our political and technological climate. So what we really have to do is build in the speech policing right into the platform. And so they're telling us exactly what they want to do. They want to install their own radical left-wing woke agenda into these social media platforms, which will control speech around the world. I think just here in my own country, in the United States, the big tech platforms control more than 90% of the flow of information around our country. And in a self-government, or in at least a nominally self-governing republic, whoever controls speech controls the entire political order. And unfortunately, there are a lot of elite liberals who are grabbing a hold of that political order right now.
Absolutely, and there are a lot of spineless so-called conservatives who are allowing it to happen, who are just too scared to fight these so-called culture wars. And I think it's almost dismissive to call it a culture war. This is really consequential issues at the very heart of our democracy. Now, before I let you go, I've got to ask you about the Trump-DeSantis battle. We're fascinated by it here in Australia. We're seeing that battle increase. I mean, they're the two front runners to be the Republican candidate for president. And there seems to be a pattern emerging. Donald Trump has a go at DeSantis. DeSantis so far has said nothing. He's almost seems to be goading him with his silence. He will not retaliate. How do you see this looming battle, and is it going to get ugly?
It is certainly going to get ugly, but what I see when I hear the Trump attacks and I hear DeSantis' silence is I see two very skilled politicians. Because right now, Donald Trump has to attack Ron DeSantis. Donald Trump is out of the government. DeSantis is his chief rival right now. If he doesn't want to lose momentum, he's got to go on the offense. Likewise, Ron DeSantis, who has a big platform in Florida, he can govern because he is still in office. He is very smart to remain silent here and to just keep doing what he's doing in Florida. And so I know there are a lot of conservatives who want Trump to drop out and endorse DeSantis, or DeSantis not to run and to throw his support behind Trump. I, for one, am very pro-primary. I love a good, vigorous primary fight. If a conservative is going to beat Joe Biden or whoever could replace him in 2024, we need them to be toughened up. And the other great advantage of primaries is it forces the candidates to move a little bit more in the rightward direction and to take more courageous stances in order to outflank one another for the primary base. And I think this is a feature, not a bug. So I say, let the fight begin.
Oh, absolutely. I think it is going to be fascinating to see how this unfolds. Just lastly, I'm going to put you on the spot. I want a tip. If you had to put your house on it, who do you think is going to succeed?
I know this is a very unpopular opinion, but I believe that right now it is early 2023, at this time in the cycle, in 2016, in 2012, in 2008, the people that you would have bet would be the nominees were not the nominees, especially Donald Trump. Nobody saw that guy coming. And so if you look at the support right now, especially because Trump is the incumbent in the sense that he still could serve one more term, I guess it's still his race to lose. He still very much is the front runner. It could be Trump. It could be DeSantis. It could be a candidate who hasn't even declared yet. This really still is anybody's ballgame. It's 16 months until the Republican National Convention. Trump has the edge, but there are a number of other contenders, even beyond Ron DeSantis, who could take it.
Michael Knowles, I didn't get the answer out of you, but thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you for having me. Great to be with you.